Yo, this is Cyber Saloon. So Eden Zero came out last week officially on Netflix. I know some of you may have seen it by Sailing the High Seas, but it's available through official streaming channels now. So I wish it was on Crunchyroll. I'm not really the biggest fan of Netflix just dumping them out as one half of an arc or season. I just think it's a better experience when it's like they release it like week by week, kind of like a Crunchyroll and Funimation when they get their anime that they're simulcasting, but that's besides the point. So I was a massive fan of Fairy Tail up until the last half of the last arc, but I'm still like a pretty big fan of Hiro Mashima. There's something about his work and about like the way that he writes. It has like a specific kind of charm to it. Fairy Tail was kind of like everything that I really loved about like an anime. It had like really fun characters, like the whole idea of like this misfit guild, like it had like a fun world, fun characters, kind of like an overarching story in the background, of course, fan service, like you had a little bit of romance, and there was really everything I really liked about like anime kind of summed up into one show. So when he released Eden Zero, I read about the first 10 chapters, and then it kind of fell off of it. When I heard it was being made into an anime, I got really excited about it. So I was really excited when I found out that it came out this week. And honestly, I really loved the first episode of the series so far. I just want to first start out JC staff did a beautiful job with the animation. It opens up with this really beautiful shot of Shiki and his mentors, like these robots that have basically taken them into their guardianship, just staring at the night sky. And they're telling Shiki that, hey, like he can't grow up in a place like this. Like there's more to life than like where he's growing up at. And of course, he's a young kid. He doesn't really understand this at all. But you can kind of tell that the robots want him to get off the world. And we first start to see his like phobia of insects as well. He freaks out when a little worm like pops up out of nowhere. But you see the robot, like he thinks of these like robots as kind of like his family. He views them as a friend, especially Michael, the scarecrow looking one. You can tell like he really cares about these guys because they basically raised him. They basically said he was dropped off, but they didn't really explain more of that on the episode so far yet. But it had, honestly, the beginning was really beautiful. The animation of them looking up at the night sky, that was really well done. Like that kind of premise of like you have to get off here. Like it kind of lays good groundwork of like where the rest of the episode was gonna go. It cuts then to our main heroine, Rebecca, and Happy. Interesting enough, I love how Hiro basically just kept like Happy is like the same exact character. Which I guess fair enough. Happy was a pretty popular character from the series, so it's not too surprising that I guess he wanted to bring like one of the main mascots, Happy, over. Except this time, instead of the main hero, he gave Happy to the main heroine. And so Rebecca, we find out, is a QTuber. It's kind of like YouTube, but on a universal scale. And she's like showed up to this Universal theme park world because like it's been abandoned for a long time and no one's really gone to it for a while. And she's like trying to like make that hit breakout video to where she's gonna get a lot of views. And then she shows up, and of course all the robots are like there, and they're like, oh my god, that's a guest. And they're all like, wow, staying here is like X amount a night. And like she's of course like, wow, this is really cool. And she tries to like record them dancing and whatnot because she's trying to make a big like kind of breakout video. And then I thought the oddest part, she's like, I'm trying to get like 1 million subscribers. So like this version of YouTube, it's like on a universal scale. I feel like on like a universal scale, I guess 1 million that sounds a lot like to like us, like, oh wow, he's got like 1 million YouTube subscribers. I was like, that's a lot. But I feel like, on like the scale they're probably talking with all these populated planets, it probably isn't too much. But that's beside the point. So she's trying to make this big breakout video, and they're telling her, oh, like you can go like find these monsters. And she's like, oh, okay. So she meets this giant cat. It's like this giant monster robotic looking cat. And Shiki's up there she doesn't see him at first, but Shiki's up there trying to repair the thing. And she thinks, I thought the cat thing was really creepy. Like she Like she's like, oh my god, isn't it so adorable, like her and Happy, but it's like this big like monstrosity robot, and like she's over here like trying to like say hey to it. All of a sudden like it just like smashes on the ground, and Shiki comes flying out, and Shiki like has like this super long unkempt hair, he looks like a serial killer, and she's like freaked out. And Shiki's never seen another human before. You got to keep that in mind. Like, obviously, he isn't going to have the best social skills. So he goes over to her and starts playing with her face and, like, starts looking at her. Like, what are you? He even gets to cop a feel. And then she, like, punches him. And she's like, oh, like, I'm the only human here. And she kind of figures out, like, oh, okay. Like, he kind of explains, like, he's the one who's been keeping up the maintenance for the whole time he's been here, to make sure everyone operates and the whole park like kind of continues operating. And then Rebecca's like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. And they start to kind of go throughout the town and kind of see it, and they go into this tavern, and he starts kind of explaining that like what he does there, how like there hasn't been a guest in a long time. This is like the first human he's basically even seen other than himself. So we see that this guy outside, like this robot outside the window, goes and tells like Lord Castellan, which is kind of like the king, quote unquote, kind of robot there, who's like the leader of them. And then Rebecca goes into like this inn for the night, and they end up kidnapping her and basically like threatening to burn her. It looks like some like, you know, old medieval kind of like, you know, witch burning, because what everyone thinks ends up happening. All the robots basically like gain self-consciousness, and they act like, oh, like we've been waiting for someone with a ship the whole time, and Rebecca, of course, is that person that they've been waiting for the whole time. Not her specifically, but they want someone with a ship because the king and they're putting on an act, and of course we know this, and like the robots are like, oh, we hate humans, like we're not slaves to them, and of course Shiki and Rebecca are kind of buying it up. I'm not sure. Towards the end, Shiki probably understands what they're trying to do, but like they keep trying to like influence him that like he needs to like fight them and he needs to leave. So they end up like, and Shiki doesn't understand. He's like, hey, I'm a human. I've been a friend your whole time. And the robots kind of play this like ploy of like, oh, well, you just didn't have a ship, so we just kind of had to stick, like, pretend we liked you and whatnot. And then they end up jumping in basically, and Rebecca, of course, is freaking out. And then Shiki ends up like just beating ass, and he ends up fighting Lord Castellan. So we get introduced. I'm not sure if it's like the magic like version that this system, kind of how like Fairy Tail had its own like mana in like its fantasy world. It's like an ether power, and like Happy says like, oh, look, it's something from the Dark Ages. What I kind of take from that, it's very rare that people kind of have this ability to what Shiki has. We don't really see much about it. Like, it gives you enhanced physical abilities, like but nothing like magic to where you're gonna like shoot a flame bolt or anything like that. But it just gives you enhanced speed, strength, and physical abilities so far, anyways. So he ends up beating like the Lord Castellan guy, like just smashes him into a hole, of course. And then Rebecca ends up dragging Shiki off to her ship, and they end up leaving. So, and of course, like, again, I just want to give a shout out. JC Staff did such a beautiful job with this animation. When the ship flies up into the sky, and she's like, "Oh, this is the Sakura cosmos," and it's this really beautiful shot of all these different planets. And of course, we actually I thought this was a really good first episode. Hiro does a really good job with intros, because I thought the first intro to Fairy Tail, that first episode, was actually really good, where it was like, oh, it's the fake Igneel, and, you know, Natsu came up to, like, actually find the real Igneel, and, of course, it was this imposter. I thought it was a solid first episode for Fairy Tail, and I thought this was a really solid episode, because all the robots, they were trying to get Shiki off the planet because they knew this wasn't a place for him to live and die, because they basically viewed him as, like, someone, like, he was under their foster care, and they were trying to take care of him for as long as possible. So Shiki, they end up all like kind of like start falling apart. It's actually kind of sad. Like, you saw that like the robots, they had this discussion years before, like, we only have a couple years left before like our maintenance, like our software basically just starts to like break down. Like, Shiki's good mechanically, he can fix them, but he's not like he's not like, you know, some crazy exceptionally talented software engineer to where he's going to be able to, like, you know, make them last permanently. I think he had said previously in the episode that their maintenance had gotten worse over the past couple years, it's just faulty software, and they're hard. He was kind of keeping them up on scrap, so it's not too surprising they started falling apart. But they kind of reference like, we only have a couple years left. We need to get them off the planet. So they did this whole ruse, like where they acted like they got this brand new software update that made them overly like self-aware, or like super too self-aware to where they wanted revenge against the humans, just so that he would get off the planet. And then we see that beautiful dragon from like the intro shot, that flying over, and then like. And they're like, oh, Rebecca's like, oh yeah, like nonchalantly, like, oh yeah, that's just like a dragon, like they exist out here, like these beautiful golden dragons. And so Shiki's like really excited, that he's like, I love this part that was really done, like where Rebecca's trying to explain to him that like all these planets and stuff are like brand new entire worlds, because Shiki's never been off that planet. Honestly, he's probably hadn't been too far off that like little continent that he was even on in the first place. So he was just obviously amazed, and he's really sad he had to leave all of his friends behind. And then it's really sad, you see all the robots start to die on the planet, and you see like Michael, who's the Scarecrow, who's just like, I guess his first real friend there, and probably like his main kind of mentor, guardian, I guess. And you see all the robots dead, unfortunately. I feel like probably later during the series, I feel like Shiki, towards the end, will probably come back. I'm not sure if he'll like completely save them, but I feel like he'll probably end up back at that planet again. And then you see, they mention at the beginning that there's this cosmic entity called like Mother, and it's this massive, just big MILF that's just, who looks like she's probably like some god or something. And that she, quote-unquote, grants rich wishes. And, of course, Shiki, because this is shonen, like, he wants to have, quote-unquote, 100 friends. Honestly, I thought it was a solid intro to the series. I really enjoyed it, actually. I read the first about 10 to 15 chapters of Eden Zero when it first came out. And honestly, I enjoyed the first chapter itself and the first couple of chapters itself. Again, like, it's been, like, over a year since I've read them. And I didn't read much. I think I read, like, the first 15 chapters. So I don't even remember. So I'm excited for the next episode. But anyways, I thought the episode played out like even better through animation, because sometimes like that, the music, like the motion, everything, like it the voice acting, it makes it kind of brings the story more to life. And I think Hiro does a great job through the chapters. It's not anything against him. I just think when it gets animated, it can like kind of be a little bit more intriguing, or it can capture you a little bit more. I thought the episode was great. So honestly, my thoughts about it, I'm really happy. I'm going to continue the series. I really enjoyed the first episode. There's so much here, because again, like Hiro, he does such a good job at like charming characters and like a fun world. Like he does such a good job with that. And I thought this played out really well. It showed really well in this first episode. It's like, oh, like you want to see like Happy and like, Rebecca and Shiki get along, and already ship it, of course, but hopefully they end up getting together, unlike Lucy and Natsu. But anyways, like there's so much you can do with space, right? Because it's just like, okay, he already did his big fantasy world, so now he's doing like this big kind of like space opera, which is really cool, because there's so much you can do with space with different aliens, tech, and stuff like that. It's like, it's not too different from fantasy, like science fiction, isn't it? And this is kind of like a space fantasy, kind of like Star Wars probably, but there's a lot you can do with it. And I'm really excited. I think that it has some interesting prospects. I like Shiki's basically like Natsu so far, but I'm hoping he kind of grows into his own character. I like Rebecca. Happy, of course. You can't hate Happy. But I think there's a lot here. I think like it has the potential to be a really good and fun series. I wish it was on Crunchyroll, sadly, because it's just like with Netflix, I hate how they drop it in cores. They'll drop like the first 12 episodes already dropped. I didn't even know they were doing the second core with 24, but apparently that's still going on. I've only seen the first episode so far, but I really enjoyed it. I'm a big fan of Hiro Mashima. I think he knows how to create a fun series, and I think all the elements of that are here. So I'm really excited to kind of check out where this ends up going. I'll put up the second episode, like kind of like review a little bit later this week. I'm not gonna wait till next weekend to do it. But I'll put that episode up probably sometime near the end of the week, because I haven't seen the second episode yet, and I plan to watch it throughout the week, probably after I get off work sometime this week. And as for the Read of the Healer review, that's probably going to take like a week and a half. That's going to be a really long video. It's probably going to be like 40 minutes, because I'm doing a whole series review. So I have not forgotten that. I have like 2 episodes left of redo. But anyways, really enjoyed this episode of Eden Zero. Thought it was a solid opener. And there's a lot here. I'm really glad, because I've always wanted like a space kind of like shonen, because it's always some fantasy thing. And like, I feel like there needs to be more sci-fi kind of like anime, because there's so much fantasy if you think about it. Like basically every isekai under the sun. Don't hate isekai, don't get me wrong, big isekai fan, like fantasy anime, but I always felt like there's a lot of room for more sci-fi anime. So I'm really excited about that. That's my thoughts on it, guys. Again, I'll probably have the second episode. I haven't seen it yet. I'm really excited to. I'll probably have that up sometimes near the end of the week, and probably like by Thursday or Friday. But I'll see you guys then. Thanks for let me know what you thought of the comics below. Do you think it was too much like Fairy Tail? Did you enjoy the characters? I did. It's like Rebecca and Shiki aren't too different from Natsu and Lucy, but it's like I'm giving it a chance. I think hopefully they'll like develop more, because I thought Lucy was developed pretty well in Fairy Tail, but I felt like Natsu never really got to develop much. But I'm sticking with it, and I hope that Shiki gets to kind of have more development. But I'm gonna stick with it, and I can't wait to see the next one. All right, I'll see y'all guys soon. Bye.